we have a quorum, and Margaret's going to make, she had some announcements to make. Margaret, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, the Board of Elections staff adopted 31 children for the holiday season through the linkages of learning, and the pictures were posted on Facebook. The County Council wishes to acknowledge the outstanding work for the conduct of the 2020 election, and they've selected the February 23rd, 2021 date. It's a virtual council session, and just please advise me if you're going to be available. I do not have time and details. Their staff will be reaching out to me, but I just wanted you to circle that date. Also, the manual audit, which is required by the State Board of Elections, will begin February 2nd and starting at 10 a.m. And our snow date is February 9th. This is required by state law, and the manual audit specifies that each group, vote by mail, early voting, election day, and provisionals have to be hand tabulated. And a press release went out on Friday. The public there will be 3 stations so that individuals can observe in training room 3, as well as we will have 2 video streaming opportunities also. And the public will be able to sign up in 2-hour shifts. We're utilizing the same programming that was available for the canvas. Janet Ross and Jerry Corshi are participating in the new poll book RFP process. Overall, is estimated that cost is going to be $31 million. And so part of that meeting is going on right now. So our IT staff is not available, which may present some issues a little later. Anyway, that's all the announcements I have at this time. Mr. President, is there any campaign contributions?
Yes, if anybody has any disclosure of a campaign contribution pursuant to our bylaws? No.
No.
Yes. No, hearing none, Margaret, they're on the...
Okay, that being the case...
We have any public comments, Lisa?
No, no one asked to address the board in advance, and unless someone's on the phone and Teams now who'd like to address the board, you may do so, I guess.
I don't hear any requests.
Okay, so, Mr. President, may I go forward?
Sure.
Okay. As I mentioned, I would like to change the agenda to allow the voter services PowerPoint to proceed. Please hold your questions to the end. So, Boris,
okay.
We're going to present the PowerPoint.
Good afternoon. My name is Boris Brajkovic. I'm Manager of Voter Services for the Montgomery County Board of Elections. Today's presentation will focus on voter services work in the period from primary elections in 2020 to presidential general election.
Boris, can you confirm you can see the PowerPoint?
Can you please confirm if you can see the PowerPoint on your screen?
Yeah. Yes.
How do I?
I got it. Yeah, can you let me know when?
Okay. At the very beginning, I would like to talk very briefly about the changes to the county voter registration.
Before we get to that, could I ask a question? Since some of our members do not have video access, I believe Nahid and Diane are in that category, is it possible to send us the PowerPoint?
What we'll do is I'll scan my notes to you right now.
Keep going. It's too big to... Just keep going.
Also, Boris, do you mind to get a little closer to the mic? We can hear you, but you're a little muted.
Okay, let me try to bring everything a bit closer.
The other option, of course, is to upload it to the website. That would also allow everyone to see it, including the public.
Unfortunately, we can't do that right now. We have Janet Ross who's out and Lisa Jones who's out, and so we hope to have it up by tomorrow. Margaret is going to scan it and email it to the board members.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is Diane. For some reason, I am able to see, does it have a blue banner at the top that says changes to county voter registration?
That's correct.
Yes.
I'm able to see that, David and Jim, and I don't know what else is going on, but you can't see me, you can't hear me on the computer, whatever. So I can see the slide.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Good, Diane.
Go ahead, Boris.
Okay, I would just like to go through the presentation, show some numbers that indicate that we had very engaged electorate for the general elections. The first slide is talking about the changes to the county voter registrations. Number of additions to the county roll for the presidential general was a bit over 32,000, with the main sources as indicated on the slide. As expected, majority of the additions came through the online voter registration and MVA, and almost 5,000 from Social Security Administration. When it comes to subtraction from the county active status, that figure goes slightly up to 34,600, and also the main sources are presented on the slide. Confirmation mail process that we as a voter services play part in it in sending out was the main driving source. Can you go? Just give us a second. The next slide is talking about changes that voters requested, that asked in regards to their data that we had in the system. We had 27,000 party affiliation changes, 34,000 address changes, and 86,000 name changes. If we compare this to the same period in a non-election year, we are talking about increase of couple of times, 4 to 5 times. Majority of changes were related to name changes as presented as a pie chart on the slide. Mail-in ballots, the applications were sent out by the state, and you see at the top of the slide that we processed applications for 378,430 voters. Most applications that we received for mail-in ballot came through the online voter registration, so-called Olivers. They were 61. They cost you 61% of the received application. On the right side of the slide, you can see dynamic, the pace in which we were receiving these applications, starting from August to the cutoff date, which was 20th of October. We had some spikes as expected, that they came around 7 to 10 days from the date when state mailed out the applications. And we had another spike around 13th of October, which was the cutoff date for voter registration for presidential general elections. Processing mail-in applications is a multi-step process. It required a number of team members to be involved in that. It required time, it required space in the building. The slide outlines key steps that needed to be undertaken in order to process each application properly. As you can see from the slide, application had to be moved from one team member to another, from one part of the building to another, depending on where the workstations were located and what we needed to do with those applications. We were checking it for completeness, we were date stamping, we were batching them up and counting. Scanning was taking place separately, then verification, then releasing the batches to the state so the state can mail out the ballots based on the applications. When it comes to mail-in ballot envelopes which contain the ballots that we were receiving, we can report that 92% of voters who requested mail-in ballot returned those ballots to us. 4% of voters who requested mail-in ballot actually showed up at the precinct and voted provisional, while another 4% who requested a ballot did not vote at all. Preferred method to return ballots to the board were newly instituted drop boxes, which constitute almost 3/4 of all ballots that ballot envelopes that we received. Mail was 27% and 1% in person in the office here. Mail-in voting was preferred method for these elections, where we had 65% of overall vote came through the mail-in method, and the support for the mail-in voting was reflected throughout the whole electorate. On the right side, you will see the percentages of voting individuals per party affiliation in terms of what was there, to which extent vote by mail was their preference. It was 70% among the Democrats who voted at these elections, 46% Republicans, 61 unaffiliated, and 63 for other political parties. As I already said, drop boxes were a preferred method to return ballots to the board. We had 53 drop boxes throughout the county. Total number of ballots that were collected through the drop boxes was a bit over 251,000. Envelopes were collected in a period from September 24th to November 3rd, and the whole operation required quite a number of staff to be involved, especially knowing that we were visiting these drop boxes and collecting ballots daily, weekdays, weekends, and evenings. Not all drop boxes, obviously, we didn't manage to get equal number of ballots through all drop boxes. This slide indicates the highest collected count per drop boxes. On the left side, you have those drop boxes through which we collected 10,000 plus ballots. On the right side, you have those drop box locations where we collected less than 1,000 ballots. Another slide where we try to bring closer to you all the process that voter services have to follow to process mail-in ballot envelopes. Again, the process involves multiple team members, different people to work on each individual envelope, either by counting it, date stamping, verifying for the presence of the signature, separating them per mode of delivery, which in this case was by mail, drop box, or in person, creating batches within those categories, and preparing envelopes to be forwarded for canvass. Canvass itself was a huge operation for presidential general election. It ran for 23 days. The period in which canvass took place was October 6th to November 23rd. We had over 100 election judges of all political parties who served as canvassers, and their work was supervised by members of the Board of Canvassers, election director, and BOE staff. We canvassed so-called standard mail-in ballots, web delivery, and provisional, and canvassing each of these types of ballots had its own challenges. Obviously, canvassing standard ballots was the easiest thing to do because it would allow us to use machines to cut the envelopes open. It didn't involve a lot of duplication. However, web delivery ballots, we had to by hand open each single envelope. We had to duplicate each single ballot completely, and had to be duplication had to be verified by the representative of different political parties. So this slide just summarizes the canvas process itself and emphasizes the work that we had to invest to process the volume that we received for the presidential general election. Also here, I would just like that apart from duplicating web deliveries, we also had to duplicate standard ballots that were damaged. We are talking about torn ballots, sliced or stained by liquids or food. The last segment refers to provisional ballots. We had huge number for this election, almost 20,000. Main reason why voters voted or had to vote provisional for this election was code number 4, is because they either requested mail-in ballot or already voted at the precinct. The other, some of them also were not pre-qualified for the same day registration, which is code 11. However, majority, almost 15,000, fall under category of voters who either requested mail-in ballot or already voted, and therefore they had to vote provisional. Provisional ballots were previewed. 91% of them were accepted in full. We had 5% accepted in part, and only 4% of provisional ballots were rejected. The reasons for rejecting provisional ballots is, again, code 2 in this case refers to the voters who already returned absentee ballot or voted at the precinct. That was majority, 310 of rejected ballots. There were 226 cases, driving license or social security number was received but couldn't be verified on time, or in 136 cases voters did not submit proof of residency timely. In addition to these core functions that we had to perform for the elections, there were other tasks that were part of our daily activities. We had in-person voting going on in the Board of Election building. We had 4,182 voters who utilized that right, that opportunity. We had the curbside voting organized for the election day only because of the COVID. Nursing home program that we run for every election had to be adjusted to meet the health-related requirements in pandemic. However, we had 53 facilities that accepted to take part in the program. Curing ballot took place as well. We cured 274 ballots out of 429, and we tried to be on disposal to all voters of Montgomery County. Voters who reached to us in some unprecedented, I would say, numbers. We had over 10,000 emails sent out as replies to their queries. We had countless phone calls that we had to answer, even though there was a state phone call center. And we had numerous in-person interaction in the office by voters who came to visit and ask questions directly.
Cancellations, did you cover that?
Oh, I'm sorry. And apart, can you just go back? I apologize. At the first slide, no, it's fine. We do. I spoke about the voter roll, maintenance of the voter registration in the county. The monthly statistics are published regularly on our website. At the end of the year, in line with the legal requirements, we also have to do the cancellation of the voters from the voter registration. We are talking about voters who were in inactive status and didn't vote in 2 consecutive federal elections. at the end of 2020, we had 30,024 voters who were canceled from the voter registration files. If you have any questions for me at this point, I'm ready to answer.
I have questions if no one else does.
I have some questions. Go ahead, Dave. I got some too.
Okay, first, thank you, Boris, for this presentation and for everything that you and your staff did, because obviously there was an awful lot to do in this last election. For the changes to county voters registration, where it looks like there were 32,000 additions and almost 35,000 subtractions, what is the time frame for that, for those additions and subtractions?
The time frame that's covered by this number is the primary cutoff date to registration cutoff date for the general election. So we are talking May 27 to October 13th.
Okay, so from May 27th to October 13th, we had as many people off the rolls as coming on the rolls. Okay, can we go to the? You said at one point in one of the slides that there was 72% of the ballots were returned by Dropbox, I believe, or was it no? There was 92% of mail-in ballots were returned overall. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the number of ballots that we received compared to the number of applications that were.
Yeah, can you show me that slide, please?
That's it. So on the left side of the screen, you have the slide which says that 92% of ballots were returned.
I don't have that right now. I don't see that. Do others see it? Right now, I see slide number 3. It says partial changes.
Is it on?
And display content.
Okay, we'll restart it. Just give us a moment, please.
It's number 6.
She cannot put it on the screen for them to see.
Okay. I think he's referring to number 6.
Do you see it?
If you put it in slideshow, I'll be able to see it. Maybe not, because I can't see anything right now.
You can hit allow one. I'm always curious.
Did you hit allow one?
Yes.
Well, while you're, okay, there,
Here it is.
Go back to the slide.
all right.
That's where I'm at. It's like, this is so slow motion.
So 72% of mail-in ballots were returned by Dropbox. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Slide 6.
Okay, so that's 72% of the 350,000 some, I guess.
That's correct.
Okay, and then so roughly 250,000 ballots were returned by Dropbox, and I know that was quite a major undertaking. Do we have any data on the percentage of return of web delivery ballots?
I have to look at the,
What exactly are you looking for? You want to know how many web,
Everything.
you want the whole?
I want to know how many web delivery ballots were sent out, how many were returned, and if I don't know whether we know by what means they were returned, but anything that will tell us, well, data about those who use web delivery ballots, I think would be useful information for all of us to know.
We'll need to
I
send...
know that there has been a suggestion in the past that web delivery ballots are less likely to be returned. And I would guess that there's probably a bunch of web delivery ballots that were reissued when people didn't know they had them because of the web address that it came from not being clear as to who it was from. I would be interested in whatever data we have about web delivery ballots.
David, we'll need to do a deeper dive into MD voters to be able to provide you that information. I quite honestly, I really don't want to speculate the numbers, but I mean it was sizable. So
all right, well, we can get that for February. That would for our February meeting. I don't know that there's an urgency beyond that, but I think it would be very helpful to have. Now, I want to talk about provisional ballots for a second, although it's very hard to do without being able to see the slides. But I believe that you had one slide that showed a huge number of provisionals. I don't remember exactly, but it was maybe roughly a quarter that were based on people requesting mail-in ballots and voting or attempting to vote provisionally. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
And then when it came time to reject ballots, only 5% were rejected overall. Okay. I guess what I want to try to understand is
4%.
And it really would be helpful to see the slides, but
Can you not see the
first
slide?
it looked like there were a lot of people who had essentially done both, or at least they requested both. And I know that if somebody actually voted both, we would reject their provisional and we would count their mail-in ballot if both were valid in this election. And I guess what I'm trying to understand is it seemed like the percentage in the first slide was much higher than the percentage in the second slide. And does that mean that a lot of people didn't vote their mail-in ballots out of that group? Or, I'm just trying to understand why, what the difference was between those two slides.
Okay, the first slide talks about people who requested mail-in ballot, plus...
Tell me which slide we're looking at.
Okay, we are looking at slide number 13, provisional ballot issue reason.
This is what happened
Okay.
at the elections.
So, you are referring to code 4 listed as absentee voter or already voted. So these 14,957 voters include voters who only requested mail-in ballot and voters who requested mail-in ballot and already voted. So if you go to the next slide and make reference to number of rejected ones, yes, you are right. The rejected ones were those who requested mail-in ballot but voted and voted mail-in ballot and then came to vote provisional as well. Accepted were those who just requested mail-in ballot but never returned it to us, therefore just voted provisional and were accepted in full.
So if I understand correctly, on slide 13, the one that Margaret sent us, it's a little bit smudged, but it looks like it's about 14 or 15,000 voters who were, at some point they requested an absentee ballot, whether they voted it or not.
That's correct.
And then they came to the polls. And it sounds like out of that 14 or 15,000, the vast majority of them did not send us their mail-in ballot because we only rejected, it looks like we only rejected 762 provisional ballots in full overall, and those are not all going to be for that reason, right?
That's correct.
So in terms of the reason for rejecting, and I'm looking now at slide 15, it looks like there's 310 voters who were rejected because they already sent us an absentee ballot and they gave us a provisional ballot. So those are the voters who weren't sure if we received their ballot yet or if we counted their ballot yet. And to be sure, they voted their provisional ballot. Then it turned out that we had their mail-in ballot, and so we didn't count their provisional. But for the thousands of others, those were people who either were sent a ballot and didn't return it or didn't receive their ballot, but they had requested it. They vote provisional, and their vote is counted because they didn't send us a mail-in ballot. Is that about right?
Yes.
And to our knowledge, nobody voted both ways. Or was there anybody who was referred to the state for any reason this election?
Kevin, do you want to address that? Can Kevin be unmuted?
That question can wait for Kevin's report if you'd rather. I'm just trying to understand the provisional interaction with the mail-in ballot, and I think I get it. It seems like we had many thousands of people who requested an absentee ballot and for whatever reason wanted to show up at the polls, either because they just wanted to, they didn't get it, or for whatever reason. But we only had 310 that were rejected because they did in fact vote their mail-in ballot, and that's definitely useful to know. You also had a chart where you showed us that there had been a large number of changes in this election. It looks like it's 27,000 party changes from the primary to the general. I know that when we sometimes get our voting data on a monthly basis, or I don't remember when was the last time we received it, we're also told how people have changed from what to what. And I was wondering if we could get, for the party affiliation changes, that information. Out of that 27,000, it would be nice to know, how people changed their party affiliation. It's particularly interesting because from the primary to the general, it doesn't make any difference as far as people being able to vote in the general. They can vote no matter what their party affiliation is if they're registered. But if I could get that information, or the whole board obviously could get that information, that would be really helpful.
David,
the
board,
for additions and subtractions, you have the 32,280 additions, like a breakdown by party affiliation, the same for reductions.
David,
Thank you, Alan. That's a good, yeah.
David, the staff would be able to provide you the information by month of July, August, September, October of the changes, but I'm not certain that we could provide you a cumulative result coming out of MD voters.
From my perspective, the monthly results would be fine, but I want to cover the entire period from the primary to the general elections like this slide does.
Okay.
So,
we can provide that.
Okay, that would be great. I appreciate that. Then I just have a procedural concern that I will probably have to say again at other times, but this is a very valuable PowerPoint, but it would have been much more valuable if it had been posted online, like our policy calls for, the week before our board meeting, or at least the Thursday before our board meeting, so that the public can look at it, so that they can give us their questions, so that we have time to look at it. And in this particular case, it's been 2.5 months since we had our board meeting. So I don't think it's too much to ask that we get our materials before the board meeting. Because I actually would like to have more opportunity to kind of analyze this in greater detail, and I'm sure others would as well. So I appreciate that. One thing that it clearly shows is that there was an awful lot of activity in 2020, which of course we all knew, and I appreciate all of the hard work that went into that. One last thing on the drop boxes. That, you know, when you talk about the highest collected and the lowest collected, we really are, in many respects, comparing apples and oranges because we don't know how many days they were open. We don't know how many drop boxes were nearby. There's a variety of factors that go into the count for these drop boxes. I would note that I believe that the Rockville City Hall drop box had a spout so that you didn't have to get out of your car, which I know was something that we had hoped for and were not able to get for the last election. But that obviously would have some impact on that. But the ones that are relatively light on the right-hand side, in many cases they had other drop boxes that were nearby, or they were in small communities like Ridewood and Asbury, where we definitely were. We had much more in mind than just numbers for putting in those locations. So anyway, okay. Thank you.
Have a list of all of the drop boxes at some point.
Yes, that would be good to get a list of all the drop boxes and how many they received. That would be very helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
Alan, I saw you had your hand up.
I had a question about the early on about the additions. I know how you get additions from motor vehicle. How do you get additions to Social Security? I just have a question. I don't know the answer to that. How do you get Social Security additions?
Okay, Social Security Administration is just one in the line of public institutions that can receive these requests. When it comes to technicalities, I will need to get back to you. The numbers that I'm presenting here are numbers that are presented on each monthly statistics that are posted on the website. That monthly statistic lists every possible source through which we get data for the new voter registration, and the Social Security Administration is one of them, just like any other state designated agencies, when people do their business.
Bart, Jim, I just had one. By the way, Bart, excellent job, and you and your staff, as always, did a great job. We really appreciate it. A quick question. I know the answer, but my mind can't. When you say ballots are cured, what does that define? What's the curing? I know the answer, but I just can't. You said we had.
When it comes to curing ballots, we are talking about ballots that we received without signatures on it. Okay. Without signature on the envelope.
Okay, and we reach out to try and get them to fix that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks. I now remember. Thank you. Excellent report. Thank you, Boris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members have any questions of Boris? Okay, Boris. Thank you. Margaret, back to you.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. With regards to the status of, as I mentioned earlier, we are required to perform a mandatory manual audit. The state board selected the early voting centers for the manual audit, and the election day vote centers, which was the activity center at Boer Park, a random selection for the first day, And there was only a couple days of provisional ballots, and that was selected randomly. The audit will occur in the training room 3, which is the old canvas room, at the Board of Elections office. 3 members of the public or public representative will be permitted to view from the hallway the manual tabulations. There will be a video streaming of the event, and the website is active to have people sign up, partly because of all of the hoopla there's been with regards to ballot tabulation. I did notify our special operations people to notify them that there is this mandated manual audit going on. The race is the president's race, and I don't really expect trouble, and I'm not going to have uniformed police here, but I will be having them doing extra patrols. Personnel, currently at this time, also...
Marvin, Jim, just do you need any board members at this?
No.
What's the requirement?
No board members are necessary. We're doing the work. No, that's not required.
But you're saying that you're adding security? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not adding any security. I just notified the police that we're conducting a manual audit of the president's race.
Okay, thank you.
There'll just be extra patrols by the Montgomery County Police and the Gaithersburg Police, just in case something happens. All right, personnel. We, at this time, all our supporting staff from Recreation have been returned to their department for regular assignment. We wish to publicly thank the many departments that supported our department during the election, and we do have temporary IT staff that will remain on duty to assist us with the manual audit, plus the post-election maintenance of equipment, plus the mandatory inventory of the state of Maryland equipment. And budget, Kara, do you want to come on board?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Kara, could you speak up, and do you want to post the budget spreadsheet?
Give me 1 second.
What is this called?
There we go. Sorry about that.
Got it.
Okay, so as you see, we are quickly going through our budget. Most of our expenditures so far and personnel is consistent. There is one thing I want to say before you review this, or maybe you've already had time to review this before the meeting. Some of the spreadsheet can be a little bit misleading because the Board of Elections has been fortunate in receiving funds from both the Center for Tech and Civic Life as well as coronavirus relief funds. So some of our total expenditures have been offset or supplemented by the other revenue sources. So when you look at this, don't think that this is all that we've expected. For example, if you look at overtime, although $600,000 is presented here, more accurately, our staff has been paid over over $1 million in overtime expenditures, and some of that has been supplemented by the grants and by coronavirus relief funds. And the same with seasonal tests. And as you can see, right now we are at, get down, about $6 million in expenditures, but I expect that we'll be running a deficit of about $2 million, over $2 million this year. And what is not displayed here yet is most of the State Board of Elections fees. We've only received our first quarter invoice thus far, so we can expect to see over another $2 million of expenditures there. And we still have to pay for the rest of our staffing costs for the remainder of the year, which is going to be about $1 million. If you'd like to talk about anything specific, please let me know. I do want to bring up something that is a little out of ordinary for this year, and that would be our election judge stipends. And I know that it only shows about $1 million here, but again, that's another area that was supplemented by grant funds, because our total expenditures in that account line was over $1.6 million, including hazard pay. So the total that was spent there was actually $1,677,287, which is with the hazard pay that we paid. And that is much higher than would normally be spent in an election year. If there's something specific, or if you have any questions, please let me know.
I think Jackie was first.
Oh, sorry.
Jackie, did you have a question? Jackie, are you?
Tom? Let me just remind, before yes, question, let me just remind you that we did receive $800,000 in the grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. And as of right now, the Corona Relief Fund has supported us with about $370,000, and we do expect to receive more in federal funding. That's been a great help to the department this year.
So that's an $800,000 grant?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question about that, but I saw that Jackie's hand was up and Diane's hand was up, and I don't know if they wanted to go first.
Sorry, I couldn't, the hand raising when I was in pre-check.
No, understood. My question relates to what you just said, which is that you expect more federal funding. Is that based on federal funds that have already been enacted by Congress, or are you talking about something that will be enacted in the future?
That is based on what was previously enacted for 2020, and that was funds that was already awarded to the county that we submit through requests for reimbursement. And that's internal, that all of our staff, we work together, and we submit requests for reimbursement based on funds that were out of the ordinary or were unbudgeted that was related to the pandemic.
Which I gather was a larger amount than the $800,000.
We expect to see about 1.2 that is qualifying.
Okay. And how much money did the county receive? Like, how much competition do we have? What are the chances of our getting more money?
We did not receive a special appropriation. So some departments do receive a coronavirus appropriation for certain things. I think there were, I can't remember exactly what it was, but for, streeteries was set up, there were different specific programs. We didn't receive a special appropriation, but every department has an opportunity to submit requests to OMB for review for things like purchasing sanitizer or plexiglass, things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Diane?
Sorry, is that Alan?
Jackie, want to say something? Diane?
Diane?
Well, I had a question about the $2 million deficit. Will that $2 million go down as you get more federal funds?
That's even with the federal funds. Without any help from the grants or the federal funds, we would have seen a deficit of about $4.5 million.
Wow, thank you.
Now, we can see you.
Yeah, I know, I'm using my Apple.
Diane, did you have a question? We see your hand raised.
Jackie, Diane sent me a text, says I've been trying to ask a question for 10 minutes, no one can hear me. Right.
Who was it?
Who's,
Jackie? Diane?
I thought Jackie had a question too.
She's not on mute, she has to, I don't know what's wrong.
Can someone call her and then she can ask her question on the phone and we can all hear it?
If she's having problems, she might want to hang up and call back in.
Outrageous, I've got you on speakerphone here. I know you've been trying to ask a question, so I wanted to patch you in so you could ask whatever questions you may have.
Does somebody have me muted on that?
No.
I don't believe so. I don't know what the problem is. I'm actually at home for today's meeting.
I can see you. I guess I won't waste any more time on this, but this is really, really frustrating. I had a question a while back.
Sure.
And it has to go to the Center for Tech and Civic Life. And the first question, Kira had mentioned you received almost, a large amount of money, and from two entities. And Kira, in one sentence, you mentioned Center for Tech and Civic Life and then something else. And I don't know what the other one was, but getting back to the Center for Tech and Civic Life, does anybody know what this is? Does the general public have any idea what this is? I think I know, but it sounds like rather amorphous title to me, and I would like to have all the information we can get, please, on what is the Center for Tech and Civic Life, how was this, where's the money coming from, what was the requirements to get the money, what are the requirements to use the money, are there any proscriptions, conscriptions with this money that I don't know if it's government agency, I'm guessing, I think I know what it is, but do these monies have any strings attached telling us how we need to spend them or what we can and cannot do?
Karen, did you hear that?
Yes, I do. So it's a nonprofit organization, and I believe they consult with the Election Commission and do education as well. So they do have partnerships with federal partners. And
Who are they?
it's a nonprofit organization.
I get that. Who are they?
Diane, this is Margaret. What I would like to do is be able to pull that information together for you and share it with the board. I believe we did notify the board when we did receive the grant and provided some information, but we will follow up and provide you greater information in the next 10 days.
Great, thanks. Can we be told today who the people are who are running this Center for Tech and Civic Life? It just sounds like it sounds pretty okay.
I just Googled them and found some information online. It appears that they are run by former election officials, but I've never heard of them before today. And I think there's a number of organizations that have similar names.
Problem. I would like
The
to.
website is techandciviclife.org. Techandciviclife.org. TCHN-LINT, civiclife.org. It's an organization that's been around for a while. They've got a variety of funders, and yes, David is right. There's a number of former election officials who are part of their operation. And I think your key funders and partners, if you go to their menu on their website, that's where you can see the list that I think you're looking for, Diane, of who funds most of their work.
Are they nonpartisan? Are they partisan? Are they bipartisan?
To me, they look like they are a mixture. But it also depends on your point of view. So, for example, it includes Google and Facebook. It also includes the Knight Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. You know, so I mean, it's a mixture. I'm not familiar with all these organizations.
Yeah, I mean, so far, everything you've mentioned is left-leaning.
I think there would be a lot of argument about that as to whether they're all left-leaning.
Organization, are there any strings attached to using money?
No, there were no strings attached. The purpose of the funds, and while all the counties in Maryland were encouraged to apply for the funds if they could, is because county government underfunds most of the boards of elections. And there were going to be unprecedented costs when it came to this election, trying to conduct an election in a pandemic and trying to integrate greater technology into the election process. And that's why we applied for it. We ended up using a lot of it to offset the cost of the hazard pay because there was never an appropriation specifically for election judges to receive hazard pay. And then there was the unprecedented overtime with regards to the vote by mail, the application being sent out, and then the subsequent. And that's what we spent most of the money on. We did spend some money on the technology with regards to that issue. Again, what I would like to be able to do is pull together the information about this organization and the information that we provided earlier regarding the grant, and we can describe what we have spent the money on. There are no strings attached. They have asked us if we, had a dream budget, what would we ask for, and what would we spend it on? And I came up with $17 million. So there you go.
Can we see that list?
My dream list? Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I would like to see your dream list, because I know, for example, that my dream list would include a lot more sorting equipment. So that we would be not quite as labor intensive for future elections. And I realize that usually when we needed to have that information, when we needed to have that kind of equipment, it was too late to get it. I would be very interested in the dream list.
Okay.
I'm not on speaker, right?
Hold on.
Yes, she is.
This is Jackie.
Yes, Jack, for answer, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Under moving services, and then down under space rental, building and space rental. We haven't spent much. Is that because we only use 27 buildings?
Yes. So, moving services, there might be still charges to come because it's the Department of General Services manages that contract for us. But we don't expect as many because we didn't have as many vote centers. And the same with rentals and leases because we use the height. Now, in future elections, that might change, but yes, the height, because we use height schools mostly. And just one more thing about the grant. There were hundreds of counties that accepted those funds, and there's a list online that can possibly be included in the list or in any report because we use Excel spreadsheet.
Perhaps you can send us a link to that list.
I can put that in the chat. Yeah.
I have one more question. I don't know if there's others who have questions at the moment, but I wanted to ask about the bill from the state board. Have we received one recently, and are we making any headway in our desire to have it be more specific than what? So I remember they were telling us they were about to make it less specific.
The second quarter bill will be shortly within the next week.
David?
Yes.
This is Cheryl Kagan. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to pop in or not, but
That's a question for Jim, not for me.
What's the topic, Cheryl?
exactly this, about local funding and costs and all that. But I don't know if this is a good time or not, or what.
If it's on subject, sure, thank you.
It is totally on subject. So, I'm not sure whether folks on this, so Cheryl Kagan, for the record, Cheryl Kagan, capacity senator for District in Rockville, and the Vice Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, where we'll be hearing all election legislation. I think, Jim, you know this, that I'm sponsoring 3 election bills this year. One of them is in partnership with MACO, the Maryland Association of Counties, and I really want to thank Allison and others for their guidance on this. One of the key aspects of that bill is putting up guardrails on funding, and I know you're talking about budgets and stuff. The problem that I think local jurisdictions, Montgomery County and the other 23, are dealing with is that the governor came up with an idea and with no advance notice and no funding just said, we're doing it this way instead of just sending ballots, as we did in the primary. We're going to send applications for ballots, which doubled 4 mailings rather than 2, and said that the locals have to pay for half. That was unanticipated and threw a wrench in a lot of people's budgets when county budgets were already stretched during COVID. So the MACO, the Maryland Association of Counties, and I are working on legislation that will give more authority to our state board to require that they oversee and vote on and debate procurement contracts. But most importantly to this conversation is that it will put into law some sort of guardrails and expectations as to who pays for what and when. So there can't be surprises that really are challenging for a local jurisdiction. So I expect to get that bill back shortly. If you Google it online, if you look it up on the General Assembly website, you won't find it yet. As soon as I do, it looks good, it will be filed, and I'm happy to share that link with you, Mr. Chairman, and with the local board staff to make sure that you all can take a look at it and offer any feedback. I do have 2 different bills that, if it's okay while I've got the floor, can I do a quick overview, Jim, or not? That's okay. I appreciate it. Chair Ann Pizer, Montgomery County District 14, and I are jointly sponsoring a bill on recount committees that came up at the initiative of Montgomery County because of our public financing. It started off as kind of a small bill, and we discovered that the current Maryland law books really are not clear about who should be able to give money for a recount committee, how that should be run, what sort of transparency, how often there would be disclosure, when do you pay for it, when does the candidate pay for it, kind of all that. And so we've done some deep dives with other lawyers and stuff. And then the last one, I call my kitchen sink bill, which is 16 or 17 small issues that make the difference in the confidence and accessibility of elections, and that is everything from canvassing to curing to privacy envelopes to voting hours to early voting days. So it's a panoply of issues. Again, I expect that back from bill drafting hopefully really soon. It's in review now, and as soon as we get it back, it is likely to be something that my committee will work on and possibly amend. So again, if there's feedback afterwards, eager to hear people's thoughts on any aspect of it, because it's not likely to come out exactly as is. It's so long and complicated.
They don't have any numbers yet, these bills, do they? Sure.
They don't have numbers yet. We just have a legislative request number because the bills haven't come back yet for bill drafting, so they haven't been filed and are not yet accessible to the public. Wanted to give you guys a sneak peek because you've been so helpful and such wonderful partners in this whole process. So if there's anything that's not in there that you think should be in there, I'd love to hear about that. If there's any aspect, once I file that you have questions or concerns about, I'm happy to engage in that conversation as well.
David,
While we have Senator Kagan's attention, I wanted to, first of all, I want to thank you for all your work in this area. I did want to comment briefly. Your example of unfunded mandates for local boards of elections was specific to one particular decision by the governor about which you will find disagreement, I think, on our board. But I think that we have general agreement that we get unfunded mandates from the state every bill we get from them. That's not the governor's doing. That's the state board of election.
Agreed.
So one of the reasons why I've been asking about getting more detail on the bills that we receive from them is in order to even have a chance of our figuring out what we're being billed for and whether we should be billed for it. So I really appreciate that you are working with MACO about these unfunded mandates, but it's not just the example you gave would have been the highest profile one, and then there'll be disagreement as to whether it was, as to how we feel about that particular decision. But it was an unanticipated expense, no matter how you look at it. We had lots of
I agree. So from a policy perspective, I understand it might be disagreement, but you're totally right that it is the highest profile. But the MACO bill, we are going to ask for basically itemized receipts, itemized invoices. So it shouldn't be write a check for this amount, transfer this amount. It should be because we use these services or we provided you with these services.
Right. I think that's really helpful. The second thing I was going to mention to the board when we talked about legislation, so we don't have a position yet, but I just wanted to put this on your radar screen because Jim and I have talked about this without yet having the chance to discuss it with the board. You may recall that in the 2018 election, we had an issue where the county school system was doing renovations on a number of schools that were our polling places. And we ended up having to move polling places for roughly 10% of voters in Montgomery County because of the desire by the school system, an understandable desire, to start on their construction over the summer the moment that school ended. And the election is about 10 days later. So one of the things that I think would be worthy of consideration and that I would urge our board to support on a bipartisan basis is moving the June primary a week earlier so that it is closer to the end of school and so that it is less likely to interfere with the school construction and so that we don't have to move as many polling places because we know that whenever we move polling places, there are voters, we do everything possible to inform them, we put signs at the old places, we put signs at the new places, but we still going to lose some voters every time we do that, and it's possible that a 1 week change could help deal with that.
David, so a question for David or for Jim or whomever. Number one, I don't know whether it's possible. Number two, you make a good point. Number three, can I get it in writing so that I can look into that?
Well, I'll bring it up before the board whenever it's appropriate today. We can see if we want to take a position. Obviously,
Precinct 430, you guys heard me rant about and how frustrating that was when St. Elizabeth, because they moved to Richard Montgomery and communication was terrible, and that was a state as well as county problem, and that was challenged.
Well,
where we can avoid it, I agree with you.
Right. This one, I think, is a way to avoid it. It would require the school system to wait maybe 3 days instead of 10. But we're thinking that it's more likely that we're able to prevail upon them to do that if it's not as many days.
I think that's practical. I appreciate that, flagging that issue.
Thank you.
I know that the state board is working on its legislation that it's shocking how many components there are to running an election, and it does get passed legislatively with the timetable, and it does come to my committee. So as soon as possible, and I'll see what I can do to pass that forward.
Thanks, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I need to come for 4 o'clock. If there's nothing else for me, if everybody else is good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I thank everybody a million times and the state board and all the stuff. I really want to make sure that you guys have heard the gratitude that I have expressed on social media and in person. This board spent so much time and put so much effort into making sure that it was successful, and the staff has done an extraordinary job And so I just really wanted to thank you all, because this tends to be a fairly thankless volunteer role, and just really appreciate you. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Take care all. Stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
Happy birthday, David.
Oh,
Thanks,
wait,
Cheryl.
Hey, wait. When's your birthday, David?
That was really low on her part. My birthday is tomorrow.
Well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, David.
Thank you very much.
Sweet 16 again.
Yes, I'm going to be 16 again.
Kevin wants to sing happy birthday, but I told him.
No. That's quite all right. But I will be sure to remind you of other people's birthdays who just outed me. So anyway.
Okay, Margaret, we're back to you. I mean, we're sorry, back to Kira. So we're back to Kira.
Oh, my.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments for Kira?
I don't think so.
Al?
We have it out. And the list of awardees is in the chat. There's 2,500 around the country.
It looks like David.
What was that again for,
I'm sorry,
Kieran?
Diane and Jackie have
The
a
grant
question.
awardees, there are
I don't know if it's already been
2,500 around the
addressed.
country.
From that outfit that Diane was questioning, is that correct?
Yes.
What about in Maryland? Do many of our counties use them?
Yeah. Give me 1 second and I'll pull it up on the screen.
And we used them in the past, or is it just a recent?
It's recent. And it helps subsidize the election judge pay, the cameras, overtime, and our seasonal tests.
It's been used by other counties in Maryland?
Yes, I'm going to show you right now. Okay. You all...
Diane, can you see this?
It's small.
I did a quick count. It looks like there's 21 of them, which means there's only a few that are missing if I counted right. And I'm guessing that I may have counted wrong, and maybe they're all included.
Yeah, so this is the list of Maryland counties that have received grants from this outfit. Diane, can you see this and hear it? You have the technical problem. I know.
Only $2,400 per grant.
No, it's more than that, I think.
Yeah.
Sure, if it's not too much trouble, when you get a chance, could you send this to Diane?
Or just send it to, if you could send the link by email so that we have it, because
Right.
once we get off this meeting,
Yes.
we will not have this link.
Sure. Right, thank you.
But it looks like every county other than St. Mary's and Somerset.
Oh, Kevin knows his counties.
I do know my counties.
Okay.
The other requirement was for it to be used on election expenses for the 2020 election. And we're just tell them what we spent the money on. That was the only requirement. It didn't have to be matched by county funds or anything of that nature.
Thanks, Kira. Yeah, we can get that. That'll be appreciated. Thank you.
Why is my hand
Diane
raised?
says she can see the screen, but
It's off.
here, if you'd send it to everyone, that'd be great.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything for Kira? Diane has her hand up, and Jackie too.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, new hands up or the old hands up?
I think Diane, her question was answered.
Okay, Jackie, is that your old hand or the new hand?
Jackie's hand is down.
Okay, so,
Back up. Yeah.
okay, so we're, Kira, thank you. Kira, thank you. Good job as always.
Okay, Mr. President, can I go on? Next one?
Yes.
Okay, legislation, Allison McLaughlin. Allison, you should be able to share your screen, and we did send an email out Friday of the latest list of legislation that had been introduced. Allison.
I am trying to share here. Do you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what you see now is the spreadsheet of the bill status as of, gosh, when was this?
Friday.
So, was Friday, the bill, sort of switch over to the General Assembly site. Do you see the Maryland General Assembly website now?
Still see the chart from...
No, just your chart.
For your session.
It's the chart with the bills and the title and...
Ellison, just post the chart.
See the Maryland General Assembly website?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I just want to show you where we go to look up the status of the legislation. We go to the Maryland General Assembly website, and in the far right drop-down, you click on legislation, and then under subjects, you drop down to elections, and search there. Now you can see that we have 64 bills that have been introduced with this topic, and so it's quite a bit. You can go in and see the status of that at any time. I believe that after we excluded all of the local bills, and after we excluded the companion bills in the other chamber, we were down to, I think, 44 bills that are tracked on this sheet. We're tracking and they're in communication with the county's Office of Intergovernmental Relations, working with the Maryland Association of Election Officials, and I'm just going back to the board meeting page now. Do you see me? No, I'll stop sharing, then you'll see me. Now I think you see me.
Yes.
Okay, so let me know if you want me to go back to either of those, if there are any bills in particular that you want me to pull up. I know, or Margaret or Kevin, I'll defer to you in terms of how you want to handle discussion on these bills. I know you both spent a fair amount of time going through them.
Well, if I could jump in, Allison, let me just give you my feeling, and I defer to the board. And I mentioned this to David. My view is, as we all know, there's a number of bills in the legislature that, from our little perch here as our local board, I think would be very. It wouldn't. Let me say that there's a number of bills that certainly are very political and possibly contentious. It's my personal view, but I think our board it would be better for our board not to, as we have done in the past, take votes of yay or nay as to whether we support any of this legislation. Certainly we can discuss it and express our views. But I don't think we gain anything by voting this cycle on legislation, whether we approve it or not. I think it would take our board down an unpleasant path, and many of these bills would be 3-2 votes, and I think we should leave these bills, especially the ones that talk about the formation and management. We should leave that to the politicians and to the governor's office and to the state board and to the delegates and the state senators. To me, these are political decisions. I mean, I think our role is to implement, not to make the laws. That's my personal view. I think we're better off as a board not taking political positions. And I defer to others. But yet, discuss bills and weigh in amongst ourselves as to how to handle things. But I think yay or nay votes wouldn't be beneficial. But David has his hand up first.
I perhaps surprisingly largely agree with what you just said, Jim. I think that there are many issues. I think that there's not much accomplished by our debating it, getting upset with each other, and then voting 3-2 on whatever it is. I do think that there will be a very limited category of bills, but it exists, that we will all, as a group, want to weigh in on the same side of. I'm hoping that what I suggested about the election day would be in that category, but I suspect there may be others. Part of what I'm concerned about, I guess I only really have two concerns that I wanted to raise they're consistent with what you said, Jim. One of them is that I think that identifying those bills where we would want to weigh in is not possible if all we get is a list of every election bill and we have to read 44 bills. And many of us, if not all of us, have other things to do as well. And I'm wondering if it makes sense to have some kind of a committee to be aided by Allison, who seems to follow this pretty closely, with one from each side. Meaning, like, I realize that I run the risk of upsetting Naheed when I refer to each side, but one from the group that might be in the 3 and one from the group that might be in the 2. And basically to identify those issues, where the board might be particularly interested, either because it's interesting, like some of the things that Kevin sent us that we might not want to take a position on that we want to know about. And then the other is that we might want to take a position when it's, in that unusual circumstance. And then I think all of us, I would want it to be clear as a kind of a common understanding of the board. All of us are free to express our own views labeled as our own views. As in, we don't speak on behalf of the board regardless of whatever position we hold if we don't vote. But we all have our own views and our own experience. So what I'm wondering is whether it makes sense to try to have some kind of a smaller group that takes a look at the legislation. I don't just mean on a monthly basis, because if we do it on a monthly basis, we're too late. It really has to be something that we get an email periodically that flags for us. You might be particularly interested in this, or the board might be interested in taking a position on that. And then if it turns out that it really is something that the board wants to take a position on, then Jim, you can decide to schedule a phone call or whatever it takes in order for us to officially weigh in. I agree with you, though, that the presumption would be that for most of the legislation, it's up to them, it's not up to us, and that our voice is not particularly needed.
Yeah, and I think I'll get to you in a second now. No, I think, David, it sounds like a very good idea. I mean, I would hope that if any legislation we did vote on, we'd send up 5-0. I would hope that 5-0 votes would be like one of the requirements of speaking out, because I don't think the governor or the legislature or anybody really would look at our 3-2 votes as anything meaningful.
I would say that I think 5-0 might be a bit much to ask. I think it's a good goal, but I agree with you that if we have a position where the board members selected by one political party take one view and the board members selected by another political party take a different view, I think that is a very limited value to anybody. I think there's going to be issues, most election management issues, we all have experienced what the problems are, and they're really not, they're not part of it. That's my view anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think, defer to the board, Alan mentioned it, but I think, a committee of 2 would be helpful to track these and bring to our attention legislation with Allison's help that's of interest to us and or something that the 2 members would think we may want to take a position on. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I know, we've all been interested in having legislation that lets us open ballots as early as possible, things like that. You know, nonpartisan, but, you know, unfortunately, you know, this year there's a lot of highly
Did you send
political
me
bills.
something from Bridge Insurance?
I prefer to stay away from those.
I just wanted to make sure it
Alan,
wasn't a
you're-
phishing attack.
I agree with you. The political things we shouldn't get involved in, but I was going to use as an example a bill to put much earlier, a month earlier, the time that we can open ballots for the canvass. That's a nonpartisan thing to really help out the boards, and in that connection, I was going to ask Alice if any bills address that, and I also wanted to volunteer if you wanted to form a committee or subcommittee. I'd be willing to serve on it with the Republicans.
Well, I'll be happy to staff whatever, you know, it's the pleasure of the board. There is one bill in the legislature that, well, there's a couple of bills. There's one in particular that sets the date of I believe it's 8 days before Election Day for ballots to be able to be open. You know, we've had a concern that was a little late. That's only 2 days before early voting starts, and we were opening ballots a whole lot earlier than that this last year. There's a couple of bills that would give that regulatory authority to the state to set dates. To answer the question.
Which is the one with the 8 days?
Passover.
It's 14 days.
Is that a House Bill 341?
Hanukkah too.
Looks like we have support it with amendments.
Yeah, that's the one then.
The 341?
I think that Steve Garrett, the president of Mayo, is going to be testifying on that bill tomorrow.
Alan, House Bill 341.
341.
Can I also add, this just occurred to me as we're sitting here and as I was looking at Kevin. I know that we've had lots of conversations over the years about some of the portions of the code that are in need of repair. I think we pretty much just got an open invitation from Senator Kagan to add to her kitchen sink what we want to add to her kitchen sink. So I'm wondering whether perhaps Kevin should work with our committee to decide if we have things in that category. It's kind of the cleanup stuff, not the none of that is political. It's all about just clarity and what the rules are.
Let me ask you this. At the end of the day, let's fix this legislation that we want to promote or initiate. Who is the receiver of our position? Would that be Mayo or Allison? Kind of your thoughts on that. Let's say the board 5-0 said we need an extra 45 days to open ballots. Is that something we would get to Mayo to promote or to the committee that can?
Yes.
Or both?
And
Well, I mean, and I'll defer to others on this too, but I mean, I would say just like the discussion that you're already having about looking at each bill closely for what is the value of the board taking a position. Who is it of value for the board to take that position to? It may be that you just want to weigh in directly with a sponsor or directly with a member of our delegation. Mayo tends to, we watch the bills, we communicate about it. The legislative committee and the leadership of Mayo tends to just sort of personally write the testimony, and go out there and deliver it. And so if there's a matter of nuance that the board wants to weigh in on, then certainly we can weigh in on that nuance with whoever is testifying on behalf of Mayo, for example.
Jim, historically, it's gone to Senator Kagan's committee. I forget the exact title of it, but she's the vice chair of.
well, there's two committees because there's also the House Ways and Means Committee, and we have a Montgomery County member as chair. So it seems to me that I like the idea of making individual decisions about who we should send our communications to and whether we send communications. But I wouldn't want to send it just to Mayo because I think we then miss the fact that, we have members in key places who actually care what we think. So I wouldn't want us just to get lost along with everybody else to be at particular views.
I agree.
Well, actually, as you'll recall, it's not only go on to both committees normally, but as a courtesy, it's usually courtesy copies been sent to every member of the Montgomery County delegation.
Yes, and I should add, by the way, that there's a Montgomery County delegate who was just named as the vice chair of the election subcommittee of Ways and Means, and that's Janelle Wilkins. So, so we actually have a number of Montgomery Countyans who are in very important spots relating to elections.
I was just going to get to Naeem, but I think she stepped away from the computer. Can you hear me, Naeem?
I'm just going to get my charger for my phone that I don't get disconnected. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm watching my phone, and Diane, who is having technical difficulties, Diane has volunteered for that committee, but I haven't run that by Naeem, so,
That's fine. It doesn't matter.
you know, you're senior, you know, but Diane wants to volunteer. So I
You
can
mean senior, in age-wise or?
service to the board.
Okay. No, thank you. If Diane is, wanted to do that, by all means, go ahead.
All right, Diane, I hope you can hear us, but thank you for volunteering to work with Alan and Allison and Kevin to kind of monitor the legislation and get back to us, ASAP, because, the legislature only gets for 3 months, maybe weekly.
I think that's great.
That's what, Allison, connect with them on a weekly basis and say, here's what's out there, and kind of make a prelude as to what you might interest in. But I'm glad everybody agrees. We don't need to fight the legislative and political war. I think. Believe me, there'll be plenty of fighting, but I don't think we should be involved. Anyway.
Sounds good.
Hey, while we're talking about legislation, would this be an appropriate time to talk about the June primary?
Yes. Legislation.
I know that Elise and Diane were not on the board when this was happening in 2018, but we really did have a large number of polls to relocate that were really based on construction schedules and on the school system's need to get their construction done in time for school to open. Now, obviously, no one knows.
60,000 voters.
Right, we moved 50,000 voters. Jim and I went and met with the facility staff of the school system. We still didn't get very far, and because they are, their job is their job and our job is our job. But my thought is that might be a situation where the entire board, and for that matter, maybe even the rest of the state, because I don't know if other jurisdictions have the same issue with construction that's done over the summer, or whether they do as much construction as Montgomery County does. But my thought was that might be an example of something that we as a board might have an interest in that move. I don't think it can wait till next year. I think that if they were going to move the primary, we would want them to do it. We want the decision to be made in 2021 for June of 2022. So, I'm more than willing to make a motion, but I first, I guess, wanted to just put it out there and see if people remember, those who were here, remember what you went through, and if they had any thoughts about it.
No, I agree with you there. We have a lot of problems. Yes.
So we're
60,000.
Yeah. The law now is that the primary is either the fourth or last
So
June.
the last Tuesday in June is what it says. I think that it would be to change it to the third Tuesday in June.
Do we know, are we certain about the school schedule, though? Is it COVID?
I looked up the school schedule for this year, which obviously is not a typical year. And there was exactly one school system that would have been beyond that date, which was Baltimore City. And I don't know whether they could adjust, but I would think that if the legislation were out there, we would find out if they could. I obviously wouldn't want them to not be able to complete their school year, but remember that school systems generally make their their calendar decisions pretty far in advance. So I believe they would make the decisions this fall. Is that right? No, this fall is too late. It may be, we have to look into that, but basically, the vast majority of school systems, this would work. It would not interfere with school. The other benefit, by the way, in addition to the construction issue, is that I think we would find that it's easier to recruit judges right around the time that school ends rather than another week later because of people's vacation schedules. You may recall that when we had a June primary with 200 plus polling places, that we had some issues in getting election judges because of vacation schedules.
Is there any risk that if he has to move it up, that some school systems will still be in class? Will still open?
I think is a bit of a chicken and egg thing here. If the election is being held on that day, would they close before that day, and would they adjust their schedules, or would they do? I don't know the answer because I don't know enough about the reasons for why they do what they do. But like I said, out of 24 jurisdictions, 23 of them, would generally be done. And I think that all I'm suggesting is that we put it out there, and the legislature is going to check on these things, right? I mean, I guarantee you that the legislators from Baltimore City will be checking with their school system as to what they think about it. So I'm quite sure that concern will be taken into consideration. From our perspective, I think that there's really no benefit to us to having it be as late as it was, or as it is scheduled to be.
Well, keep in mind, we disrupt the school's calendar in November every election cycle.
And in April, when we have elections in April.
Right.
I mean, it's scheduled around us. I mean, that's what they do.
That's right.
All it would mean if you needed to have your school calendar based on the number of instructional days, it would mean they would have to extend it by one day. Because they would have to, if they close school on election day, they would have to extend the year by one day.
What would be the mechanism for what we want to do? Would it be a letter that the board unanimously requests that Senator Kagan introduce a bill like that?
I think I would send it to all the legislators in Montgomery County, and maybe especially to the ones who are on the election-related committees. I don't think I would do it only to Senator Kagan because I don't want to be offending Delegate Kaiser and Delegate Wilkins. And besides, I think that we need support in everywhere for how we do this. So I think I would send it to all of them. And I think we would probably want to send it to Mayo and see whether there's any interest in this from others, because everyone is going to ask their own election officials what they think about it. I also should add that I don't know that I would move it by more than a week because of both the combination of school schedules and people wanting time to campaign and all that.
Kevin, legally, do you have any thoughts legally on what we could be requesting?
Well, I think it'd be fine. They can move the date if they want.
They frequently do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Do you want
Jim?
motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jim?
Okay, I move that the board send a letter to all the Montgomery County legislators and ask Allison to communicate with Mayo or let's just say send a letter to Mayo suggesting that the June 2022 primary be made 1 week earlier.
A second. You want to put these letters line?
Yes, but I'm not sure that you want me to list it right now. I think I just did.
Okay.
I wanted,
This is on board. Seconded it? I seconded it. Any discussion? What's that?
Someone's making popcorn.
All right, well, Diane sent me a text. 3 minutes to the phone. Okay. Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Kevin, can I ask you to get a draft for that? Good idea.
Did you say, Jim, that Cheyenne voted?
Well, she sent me a text saying, please add me to the vote, whatever you decide.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's good.
Nadine and I are in favor of it, and I'm assuming that it's a yes. But even if it was, no, I'm taking it as a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Okay. I think, is there any other conversation on legislation? Allison, thanks for helping with that. All right, Margaret?
Yes, on the State Board of Elections, basically Senator Kagan, you've announced about Mr. Kogan, and Senator Kagan addressed her issues. The only other thing I'd like to add is that the clear ballot audit is now available via public. So as far as I'm concerned, Board Attorney's report would be next.
One question. This mandatory audit that's coming up,
Yes,
we already had the clear ballot audit.
yes,
Why are there two?
because the legislature said so.
Okay. There you go. Kevin, thank you.
I don't have much to report. I'm working with the state board, Jared Demeritt, about a FOIA request for video footage for our drop boxes. So we're still working through that issue. The only other thing is I want to answer David's question regarding the number of people referred to the state. The state board gets a report that basically says these are individuals that may have voted twice. Of course, as you know, generally when someone has voted a provisional ballot and an absentee ballot, we've rejected both. But during the last election cycle, the rules were changed that we could accept one of them. So while there's a report of potential double voters, my understanding is there was only one individual who was referred to the state prosecutor's office, and this was an individual who I underline may, had lived in Montgomery County and had a property in another state, and they were looking at the issue of whether that person voted in both states. So that's all I have to report.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, Margaret, we're going back to the presidential election 2020.
No,
report. Anything
that-
else on that?
No, not at this time. I would recommend that Ellen Banoff's observation overview be treated as an action item for the next board meeting on February, and that Lisa review the action items coming out of this meeting now.
Are we
I
ready?
would encourage other board members, Alan's was excellent. I mean, for next month, maybe any board member that had observations or criticisms or, recommendations that we consider that all. We're making a topic for the next agenda, Margaret?
Well, if the questions need to be answered, I would recommend trying to get it to us sooner. But for action items, we will address Alan Banoff's overview and observations. We will follow up on any of the tech and civic grant funding information that may or may not have been addressed. Follow up on the web delivery ballots to try to dig deep into some data. And then my dream funding question, David wanted to try to get a copy of that. And
The list of all Dropbox locations that was requested by David. Also, David,
But that's not just a list of the locations, it's a list of locations and the numbers associated with them.
okay, and associated.
The number,
You also
the
requested,
number of ballots that they received.
You also requested a party affiliation changes for the primary to the general. And a detailed information on, I think Alan requested a detailed information on the Social Security changes that are on the State Board of Elections website about monthly stats.
Now my question was, what does Social Security send to us?
Right.
How does that work?
And he was going to pull that information, more
Alan,
detailed
it's just another
information.
agency that has voter registration forms available. I'm not sure that it's something specific, but.
And then the
And then,
letter,
of course, there's the legislative committee meeting that is supposed to take place as well.
okay, and
And
then,
a letter regarding moving up the primary seat.
Yes, and a letter regarding moving on the primary.
She's got it. Okay, so that'll be the action items for February, plus we will have IT,
I think it's operations.
operations will be presenting next month a review of the general election for 2020. So, now I did.
Can I ask one more question for follow-up? Is there something that either we or the staff needs to do in order for materials to be posted in advance of the next meeting?
We will have them posted, no later than Monday morning, before the meeting. I'll try to see if,
That is quite late for the public to have a chance to read it and comment and decide if they want to speak with us. I'm pretty sure we have a board policy that says it's supposed to be posted on Friday.
okay, it will be posted on Friday
On
then.
Friday.
It will be posted on Friday.
Friday morning is what the policy says. And if that's problematic, then perhaps we should discuss the policy. But I know that and I would really add to that, because I mentioned this to Jim, our website, as of last night, I didn't look at the moment, did not have anywhere that I could find that we were meeting today. Other than if you went into the board portion, into the board meeting portion, into the list of meetings, and you knew that today was January 25th of 2021. And I was wondering, because before last fall, when we were in the midst of the election, you all were really good about putting on the front of the website when we were getting ready to meet, kind of like what the state board does for its meetings. And I think it would be useful when we put the notice out of our meetings to make sure that it's somewhere that people can see them.
I was going to bring that up myself. I agree. The state board has it right in the middle of their website, front page, when we're going to meet. So,
I will talk to Janet.
Alan?
Yeah, about 4 things. Okay, first up on the state board website.
Margaret, can you look at that, putting it on the front page?
I will talk to Janet.
Okay, thanks.
The state board website doesn't have a calendar up for this cycle. Two, I should mention that under new business, we need to look at our website, and we need an overhaul after the election. The last stuff on there was pre-election, you go back through there and scrub the stuff, and we just need to be there. Also, on my report, I want to commend the staff for the excellent work they did. It was terrific, lots of moving parts. It was an election like no other, and I thought they did a terrific job. On the fourth item. Oh, the fourth item on IT, someone needs to make sure that Diane can get in here. Maybe Janet can help her get her back into the meeting.
Yeah, that's really true for all of us. I mean, we have to make sure that all of us can get here. And I personally think I'd like to be able to see the staff members when they're talking to us as well. I think it would be very helpful. That's the whole point of our being on video.
Okay?
Okay. Naeem, we're going to talk about the approval of minutes, and I know that you've...
Yes, I have 3 sets of motions. One at a time I go, or Kevin, tell me if I'm wrong. I can do each one of them separately.
Sure.
First of all, I move that the board approve following 4 sets of minutes as amended by
amendment by Mr. Banks. The minutes of August 17, August 20, September 8, October 21st. I move we accept this minute. The waiver.
I second that.
Amendment.
August 17, August 20, September 8, and
And October 21.
October 21.
okay. Alan, again, thank you. Very tedious. Thank you. Good work. Thank
Get
you.
the
For a
vote.
second,
I'll second it.
any discussion on approving those 4 sets of minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay, second move, Mr. President.
Yes.
I move that the board request that the staff review the board members' comments and revise the following 3 sets of minutes and send them back to the board by Monday, January 31st. Those are, they are October 20th, October 2, 2020, September 21, 2020, November 3rd, 2020. These are the 3 we have review and get back to us by
In 5 days.
January 31st.
I don't, on the list, on the minutes, I mean, on the schedule for the agenda, I don't have, September 21st?
September 21st, yes.
We don't have September 24th.
You have September 21st?
We don't
Do
have-
we meet September?
It is, that's what it's looked at, yes.
It was sent to us. I don't know what's on the agenda, but it was sent to us.
Lisa, yeah, maybe I should.
And Jim, since the request is for it to be reviewed and sent back to us, I'm not sure if it matters if it's on the agenda.
Yeah, what were the 3 again, Naeem?
They are October 2nd,
Right.
I go there, September 21 and November 10th, November 3rd. The 3 of them.
October 2nd, September 21st, and November
One,
3rd.
In
I want you to-
November what?
3rd.
Staff reviewed and revised the following, revise them and send it back to us by January 31st.
I will second that.
It's a Saturday. Do they really work on a Saturday?
Can I ask
Sunday?
a question of Kevin?
Is that Monday?
And am I working on Saturday and
Kevin,
Sunday?
am I correct that, first of all, obviously the staff can send us the minutes whenever the minutes are ready? But do I recall correctly that we are now able to, at the very least, discuss amendments to the minutes, if not approve the minutes via email?
That's correct. That was one of the bylaw changes that was made.
So it's possible, for example, that
we
if we were to
extend
get
that
this
to
back, as Naheed asked on
weekdays?
January 31, that it could be sent to us to review and we could have them approved long before our next meeting.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. And then just announce the approval of the meeting, the minutes at the next meeting.
Is January 31st a Sunday or Monday?
It's a Sunday. I'm requesting that be delayed to to February 2nd.
Yes.
Is there some reason why you're skipping the Monday?
Because
we're-
Sunday.
Because I'm trying to also get ready to do the manual audit and trying to
Okay.
do
That's all right.
things.
Okay.
And
I revise my motion February 2nd instead of January 31st. Sorry, I didn't look at the calendar. Okay.
Is there a second?
David already
David already seconded.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one opposed? Okay.
My third suggestion, I move that the board request staff post the audio for the meeting on September 21st, November 30th by COB on Wednesday, January 27th. Now, since Margaret is busy, I revised them to February the 2nd and send the board members the link once they are posted. There's a problem.
She's asking for the audio
I
video?
have November 13th on my agenda. Is that something that you said?
What's November
No.
13th?
It was,
December 21st meeting? I think
There
you
was
said
no meeting.
May I ask a
Wasn't
question
needed
about,
October
Naheed, about your motion? I'm not sure that a motion is needed for us to ask the staff to post the audio. And I'm wondering whether Margaret is even needed for the staff to post the audio, because the audio either exists or it doesn't.
yeah, okay.
So maybe we could just ask staff, can you post those audios
For what
in the next
dates?
couple of days?
What dates?
Remove that portion then.
November 2 and November 3.
Okay, there is,
Those aren't the dates of the audio we're talking about. The audio that was missing was September 21 and November 30.
Yeah.
November 3.
November 30 and September. There is no audio for November 3.
November 3, that's it. November 3.
Correct, November 3.
November 3 is not on the website?
November 3, there is no audio.
Yeah, I didn't see any.
Okay.
And there'll never be audio. There was a mistake made by one of the staff people, and it did not get recorded. We'll only have old-fashioned minutes. So what we need is audio for September 21 and November 30th.
Yeah.
Yes.
November 30th was a Board of Canvassers meeting.
Did we meet on all 3 days, on September 21,
That's a
November 3,
certification
and
of
November
election.
30?
You did meet on,
And again,
I think you met on, I don't know about September 21, that sounds right. November 3rd is election day, so you had your mandatory meeting. And November 30 is a Board of Canvassers meeting, and that was my next question. I did contact Kevin with regards to the Board of Canvass minutes that were sent, but I'd like to finalize this September 21 and November 3rd.
David, board members, this is Lisa. Just to confirm, there is audio for the September 21st meeting. We are working to get that up because Janet is out, and the software that's available to do that has to be done by someone else. And so we're working on getting that up, and hopefully it will be up in the next 2 days. November 3rd, unfortunately, there was a recording issue, and that was, if you recall, Election Day, where I was trying to run back and forth with the food. So there was no audio for that meeting. There are notes, and those can be prepared for you by February 2nd. In addition, the November 30th meeting, it was not a board meeting, it was a Board of Canvassers meeting, so that is not recorded.
Yeah, that's right, okay.
Okay.
All right, but this is not a move,
okay, thank you.
I just need a sufficiency, okay.
Lisa, Jim, I have on my agenda November 13th. Is there something open on November 13th?
November 13th is was the last day to receive ballots via mail, as I recall.
There was a meeting on November 13th. Let me just check the website real quick.
It was a canvas
It
meeting.
was probably,
It was a canvas meeting.
we usually count absentee ballots.
Yeah, so that was a Board of Canvassers meeting.
That was-
But we might not have met because this year's canvas was so different.
There was a Board of Canvassers meeting.
And so there would be no audio or minutes for that. I mean, minutes in that Boris has already prepared those for submission.
Okay, so I just left it on my list to approve, but,
It is in the agenda, one of them,
yeah, November 13th is still on your list, Lisa, to approve.
I will strike that from the
Something to
agenda.
come up to it.
Okay. And then the next question I have is, will the board receive the canvas minutes from the November 30th meeting? And I was going to ask if the board would approve those minutes.
Did we get it?
You got them on Friday.
I personally have not had a chance to review them.
All right.
I don't know whether Alan or anyone else has.
That's fine. We can lay them over till next month.
Yeah,
We can discuss it, about December 2nd. Only pending.
That was not a meeting.
There
That's
was-
been taken off the website.
December 2nd, there was no meeting. You met on November 30th.
Right,
The,
right, we met,
I
we
thought I
met,
did approval of minutes in the agenda.
We are going to strike it from the agenda. There was a lot of
okay.
people working on the same thing.
All right, so we approved 4 sets of minutes, that's good.
Well, and we're on a path for three more. We get the, once we get the staff's reactions, and then we have the canvas minutes that we have to look at.
Very,
Right,
making a big dent. Good.
okay?
All right, Lisa, what's our next meeting date?
The next meeting date will be February 22nd.
Do we need to, at some point, approve a calendar for the rest of the year?
I had
know we
10,
typically do. We're typically on the third Monday of each month, but, and with August and December with a question mark. But, I didn't know whether we needed to do anything to let the public know that that's what we're doing.
Usually we don't do that.
all the,
Well, usually we're asked whether we have any issues with any of the dates.
No.
It's February 22nd, isn't that one of the president's birthdays?
No, President's Day is on the 15th.
May I suggest that everyone look at their calendars and see whether the third Monday of each month,
Right.
it generally can be a problem in January and February because of Martin Luther King's birthday and President's Day. But then I believe it's generally, we've been able to go ahead and meet the third Monday of every month after that.
Yes.
I'm good.
Margaret, you can tell them the dates are already on the website. Tentatively right now, unless they
You want us to check right now, or you want us to get back to you?
No, we can get back. We can check our schedule and get back.
Okay. I'm not aware of a problem, but I do want to have a chance to look.
But our next meeting is February 22nd.
Right. 2:30.
Right, February 22nd. All right, we've got a lot accomplished. Thank you, everybody. Anything else? Kevin, did you have something?
I do not, no.
Okay. No, we got a lot accomplished. Anybody have anything to wrap it up? No? Okay, get your vaccine. Yes, thanks.
Tomorrow I'm getting.
Just get your vaccine. I'm trying.
I move you adjourn the meeting. That's
And, is there a second?
second, Nadira. Alan.
Okay. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Who was
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
I think.
Okay, thank you, everybody.